Oi. Oi.
Saudi Arabia is part of the Arabian Peninsula, and on its borders it has Yemen, Oman, United Arab Emirates, Iraq, and Israel. It has an area of 2.2 million square kilometers, or 856,000 square miles. It's completely covered in desert, most of it being hot except for about 1% of it, and under these harsh deserts are vast cave systems. And in Saudi Arabia there's only one mountain range due to it being a desertous area, and that mountain range is the Hijaz Mountains, and it's located by its southwest borders. As well, because it's a desertous area, there's next to no above ground water. There's no rivers, there's no lakes going through it, there's nothing like that. However, it is surrounded by water on most sides. So Saudi Arabia's form of government is an absolute monarchy. That is where the monarch, or the leader, is he has absolute power. There's nothing stopping him from doing whatever he wants. Okay, so the House of Saud is the monarch family in Saudi Arabia. They rule, they do whatever they please. As well as being an absolute monarchy, it's a unitary state being ruled by a single ruling government which has absolute power, and it's also an Islamic state being ruled by the Quran.
So, the official religion of Saudi Arabia is Sunni Islam, the largest branch of Islam, the most popular. Sunni comes from the word sunnah, which represents Muhammad's behavior in the Quran. Sunni also means tradition, so the Sunni Islam see themselves as the most traditional, the most practical branch of Islam. Because Saudi Arabia is an absolute monarchy, through forced conversion, the official religion is Sunni Islam. The 5 pillars of Islam. The first pillar is Shahada. Now, Shahada is a basic testimony saying that you believe in Allah and that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Salat, the second pillar, is daily prayer, which is 5 times every day, and it's facing the city of Mecca, their holiest city. Now, Zakat is obligatory charitable donation. Every year, annually, it's recorded to take up about 2.5% of liquid assets and income-producing property. So, for the fourth pillar, Saum, is fasting. And fasting means that Muslims are not allowed to eat, drink, or engage in sexual intercourse from dawn to dusk. And this is considered spiritual renewal. The last pillar, Hajj, is that a Muslim at one point in their life must make the pilgrimage to Mecca, the holiest city, if they're physically or financially able.
Labor is a huge division in Saudi Arabia. The manual labor falls to the immigrants, while the government jobs fall to the local citizens of Saudi Arabia.
So, marriage. Marriage is arranged by the parents of the bride and the groom. Men can marry foreigners, while women cannot. Typically, the to-be-married couple are first cousins, if not some other kind of cousin, which may contribute to why 67% of Saudi Arabian men are inbred. Men can have up to 4 wives, but they typically only have 1. Divorce rates are huge, but also remarry rates are huge. Saudi Arabia is one of the 10 countries where homosexuality is punishable by death. Okay, so Saudi Arabia follows the neo-local residence style, meaning that the father and the mother are fairly equal, but the father holds the authority of the relationship. The son's job in the family is to take care of the mother if she is ever widowed. And individuals are not allowed to talk to other individuals unless they are related.
There are quite a few different tribes and clans throughout Saudi Arabia. However, there's one main tribe that's the largest and stands out the most out of all of them, and that is the Bedouin tribe. This tribe was a nomadic tribe that had a polytheistic belief or a belief of multiple gods. And this was until, though, a large conversion to Islam when Islam came through the Middle East. They also believed in animism, or the belief physical entities such as animal, plants, and inanimate objects all have spiritual significance or some type of life source. Saudi Arabia has a culture that is very heavily defined by its Islamic heritage and its Bedouin heritage. As well, it has traditions that are based off of it being an ancient trade center. It recently, though, has been a lot more modernized because of Western culture invading the Middle East. There are quite a few different things that are essential to the culture of Saudi Arabia, and one of these things are festivals. They have many different kinds of festivals that hold many different things, but the largest and most prominent is the Janadri Festival, or as they call it, the National Festival of Heritage and Culture. This festival is held annually as the oldest and most traditional of any of the festivals throughout Saudi Arabia. And this festival is held for 2 weeks each year and is attended by more than 1 million Saudi citizens. It is held typically between the 12th and 26th of February each year and holds many different kinds of things. Some of the things you might expect to see are camel racing, book fairs, traditional crafts such as pottery, weaving, and woodwork, arts, a large market holding many different kinds of foods, spices, as well as national dances, and traditional music.
So the first holiday that we're going to be talking about is Eid al-Fitr. It's a feast at the breaking of the Ramadan fasting. Closure of all offices and schools on this day. It's a huge holiday. So the last two holidays that I'll be talking about are Eid al-Adha, the culmination of the pilgrimage, and September 23rd, Saudi National Day. So the typical work days in Saudi Arabia are Sunday to Thursday, with Friday and Saturday as their weekends. Now the highlights of the year are the holy month of Ramadan and the Hajj, or the pilgrimage season. The holy month of Ramadan, during which Muslims fast from dawn to dusk, culminates with Eid al-Fitr holiday. The pilgrimage season draws millions of Muslim pilgrims from around the world to come to Makkah every year.
Last but not least, let's talk about the steps of marriage. So the first step to marriage in Saudi Arabia is the proposal. And in this step, the two families get together and basically discern whether it'd be beneficial for the bride and the groom to get married. This is quite different from America, where the man proposes to a woman on bended knee.
Next, we have the viewing. If both families approve, the bride is formally allowed to unveil her presence in front of her future husband.
So the next step in marriage is the marriage contract. So if the viewing hasn't stopped the wedding plans, this is where the amount that will be given to the bride at the time of marriage is formally met. It's formally set in place. And there are also other terms that are negotiated by the prospective groom and the father of the prospective bride. And these are approved by a priest of the mosque nearby and witnessed by two males. And in the end, it's recorded by a qadi or a judge of the Shahira court. The amount that the bride is given is much higher if she's a virgin rather than if she's a divorcee or a widow, typically being almost 3.5 times more.
Meeting of the families. This is a party of both the families hosted by the bride's family, in which the bride is presented the dowry, the engagement ring, along with other gifts of jewelry.
Now we have the betrothal, and this is basically where they set the date for the wedding parties for the men and for the women.
We have the night of henna, a party based around decorating the hands and feet of the bride with paste made from the henna plant, a traditional wedding custom throughout the Arabian Peninsula and elsewhere in the Muslim world.
Finally, we have the wedding itself. This usually comes from 6 months to a year after the acceptance of the wedding proposal. There are two different actual celebrations, one for the women and one for the men, but are both attended by family, close friends, and distinguished guests. Traditionally, weddings were held in homes, but now they're held in large hotel ballrooms and special wedding halls. Each party usually consists of a large dinner featuring roast lamb or baby camel over rice or cracked wheat that is served on the floor. A traditional congratulatory phrase that guests tell the groom is, "From you the money, from her the children." And the men's party ends after the dinner, but the bridegroom and the male members of his and the bride's immediate family then go to the women's party.
The women's party lasts longer than the men's and is more elaborately decorated. In addition to food, has music, singing, and dancing. Around midnight, the bridegroom and other family male members arrive and are announced amidst the high keening sound of the women. The other men then leave. But the groom sits beside his bride on a dais while the party continues. Some wedding celebrations can go on for several days, but the groom need only attend the first night. After the celebrations, the couple is traditionally escorted to their new home or leave on their honeymoon. Saudi Arabia's national dance is Arda el Arda. The literature in Saudi Arabia is in poetic form, and some of it's even in English. Saudi Arabia has no cinemas, although at one point it was debated, but they decided not to. They have their own types of music as well as the traditional types that they use in festivals and other celebrations. Quite a big place in the art world in Saudi Arabia is pottery. So ceramic shops for pottery, bowls, cups, and other things, along with sculptures, are huge in Saudi Arabia. They're everywhere.
So architecture is a very large form of art in Saudi Arabia. It's in their skyscrapers, their typical buildings, and the religious sites and other attractions like that. Now, for the religious sites, there's one style of architecture that stands out from the rest, and that is Islamic architecture. This consists of vaults or arches that support the roof, domes, and the ornamental style, which is made of complex geometric shapes. Examples of this style of architecture is the Quba Mosque in Medina and Kaaba in the holy city of Mecca. And interestingly enough, Kaaba has walls made of granite and floor made of marble and limestone.
Get it because it's trendy? The language spoken in Saudi Arabia, as you can all guess, is Arabian. English is also spoken there too, a fair amount as well. Ping pong. So, Arabian is a Semitic language, and Semitic language means it's a branch of Afro-Asiatic language, which is a overall larger family that originates in Africa, North Africa, and the Horn of Africa, and it's kind of distributed into the Middle East.
So Saudi Arabia's type of economy is a control economy. The monarch controls what gets traded, how it gets traded, and when it gets traded. Now, Saudi Arabia has the 19th largest economy in the world with a GDP of $745 billion. Now, GDP, or gross domestic product, is the monetary value of goods and services produced within a nation's borders over a specific period of time, such as a year. In comparison, America has a GDP about 23 times larger than Saudi Arabia's. That's about $16 trillion.
Saudi Arabia's economy is deeply dependent on its oil production. The nation has roughly 18% of the world's confirmed oil supplies and is the #1 exporter in the entire world of oil. Petroleum makes up 92.5% of Saudi Arabia's budget revenues, 90% of the export earnings, and 55% of the annual GDP. National debt of Saudi Arabia is $134 billion due to government overspending. Tourism is also an important industry thanks to the millions of pilgrims who flock to Mecca and Medina each year.